So the seven limb prayer originates from the Bodhisattva path teachings and particularly the Bodhisattva's deeds. It is also very well described and explained in the Bodhisattva Charya Avtara of Shantideva and other texts by Samantabhadra, the aspiration to good actions. Also in the Avatamsaka Sutra, the flower ornament scripture. So Samantabhadra, the Bodhisattva of great conduct, as he was called, presented these seven limbs as a complete method of purification and accumulation. And you will see in many of the sadhanas in Mahayana texts, it appears in numerous places. Like you will see it in the Lamrim, you will see it in the preliminary practices, Guru Yoga sadhana. Each limb is meant to counteract one of the main obstacles to enlightenment. We say we need two accumulations on the path, the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. Punya Sambara. Punya is the currency here. So accumulation of merit, Punya Sambara, is generated through virtuous deeds like generosity, being kind, maintaining morality, ethical conduct, and giving altruistic service. Anything virtuous that we do is helping us generate punya. And it purifies the kaleshas or the obscurations or the afflictions. So then it turns into kalesh avarana, means it is any action that we do of body, speech, and mind which is virtuous helps us reduce our afflictions and eventually uproot them. Now, what are the afflictions? Afflictions of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy. We are all very familiar with these, these unpaid illegal tenants of our mind. And then they behave as if they are the bosses, they own us. Accumulation of wisdom happens when we have, through meditative practices, generated insight into the nature of reality. It purifies the cognitive obscuration that we have, which is preventing us to our omniscient wisdom. So by generating or cultivating punya, it creates a conducive environment for our mind to realize the wisdom into the true nature of reality. Now, when you look at the seven limbs one more time, while I recite it for you, just try and visualize yourself doing it as if you're representing all the beings that you have visualized. Okay? Reverently, I prostrate with body, speech, and mind. So when we are prostrating with body, speech, and mind, what does it do? We are doing this, first of all, in the recognition of the qualities of the Buddha, our Guru, the Dharma, and the Sangha, that they are a valid source of refuge. And uniting our three doors of body, speech, and mind in reverence to them, we are actually cultivating humility. And it becomes a very strong antidote to arrogance, to pride. By lowering oneself physically and mentally, we also become a receptive of blessings. And you can never ask for blessings like this, right? And then it helps us in generating vast amount of merit. Then we come to the second one. And I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. So you see on our altar here, we have beautiful offerings, very beautifully laid out in all these water bowls and incense and flowers and all the other lovely objects. I don't think Buddha is interested in having our tap water, or that plastic flower, or some incense, some fragrance, right? But why is that when we're making offerings? What are we counteracting here when we make offerings? physical, mental. So physical offerings, when we're actually doing an act of making an offering to the holy beings, to your master, to the Guru, the Buddha and the Sangha, you're generating the cause for yourself to have those things. Yeah? So in other words, it is actually uprooting the kalesha, the affliction of being miserly or being greedy, of having a tendency to hoard things, you know. How many of us know that there are plenty of things in our closets that we don't need, but we always open our closet and say, I might wear that on some occasion. And it hasn't happened in years or months, you know. When we are engaging in the action of making offerings, somewhere we are letting go of that sense of grasping and holding. And we are generating proactively a sense of generosity. Mental offerings, from your own mind, what would you offer from your mind? What aspect of your mind would you offer?
Compassion.
Yes. And say you're enjoying a really nice cup of tea. That pleasure that you get, you can offer that. The bliss that you are deriving from having a delicious meal or seeing a beautiful garden, you know. So I remember His Holiness Dalai Lama would say, you don't need to pluck flowers and put them in vases for me. If you have seen a beautiful flower in a garden, let it grow there and offer it. You know? So the flower is there where it needs to be, but it's been offered how? Mentally, the beauty of that flower, the fragrance of the flower. You know? So this is how mentally we can also make offerings. So then when we are doing it mentally, because the seed of greed is very mental. You don't see our greed in a physical form, but we see it in our actions, right? Then we come to the limb of confession, and offering or being generous is the easiest way of generating merit. Even in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the very first paramita that is taught is called the paramita of generosity. Yeah, generosity also can be of aushadhi dana, like giving medicines, you know, giving comfort to somebody. But here, when we're talking physical actual offerings of offering to the sense organs, right, and then the mental offerings, to be very specific here. But as we go into sadhanas of higher yoga tantra, then the offering rituals and the offering prayers also become more elaborate, and they also become more sort of deep. Yeah, but here, because it's a beginner level practice, we will just simply stay with this kind of an explanation and visualization, and then we move on to confession. So now take a moment and reflect on this one. I confess all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time. Acknowledging and purifying negative karma through sincere remorse and not guilt. Relying on the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. As we have invoked their presence, take a moment and bear your heart out. And when you have done that, just make a resolve of not to repeat the action again. And now here we have to be realistic. For example, you have lashed out to somebody out of anger, and you know that was not called for. Please take a seat. In this very moment, reflect on that particular action of yours and make a resolve that I will not repeat this action again for a month, for a day, for a week. Yeah? And for example, if I can up the quotient of my practice, With the same person, if he shouts back or she shouts back at me or criticizes me or puts me down, I will not react back in the same way for an hour, for a day, for a week, and then you slowly uproot it. Yeah? If you do this one, then this confession makes sense. Otherwise, it's like jumping in the puddle of water, muddy water, and then saying, I will go back and rinse it. I have a nice Surf Excel at home, right? But then that does not really help you progress on the path. So we will do this together. I confess all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, acknowledging and purifying your negative karma through sincere remorse, relying on the 3 jewels, taking a moment, and bring one single action that you may have done in the last 24 hours that you think may have caused anyone harm, including yourself. And now make a resolve, I will not repeat this action again. And be honest, be true to yourself for an hour, for a day, for a week. Counteract your own sense of guilt, denial, purifying your karmic obscurations. It should lead you to a sense of feeling light in your heart and confidence on your path. So when you're confessing in this way, it helps us to remove the obstacles to merit and wisdom, purifying our emotional obscurations, especially the mind that says guilt is better than taking proactive action. Then moving on to rejoicing, the 4th limb. When we rejoice, I rejoice in the virtues of all the holy and ordinary beings. How wonderful. Why are we rejoicing? When we rejoice delightfully in the good deeds of the spiritual masters, of all the holy beings and ordinary people, we are delightfully taking part in all the virtue that they have done. So actually, very easily partaking in the merit that they have generated. And uprooting this very deep sense of competitiveness, jealousy and envy that we have in ourselves. In other words, by rejoicing, we are very easily able to generate merit. If you haven't done anything nice and good and virtuous proactively, simply rejoice. And you can rejoice sitting anywhere, anytime. So effortless. So rejoice in all the wonderful deeds of His Holiness Dalai Lama. Rejoicing in the wonderful deeds of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or your own guru with whom you have a deep spiritual connection. And then rejoicing in the deeds of all the other enlightened masters of different faiths. How wonderful, they're guiding beings on the path of truth. Rejoicing in all the wonderful efforts and deeds of your own parents, your teachers who've taught us in school and colleges for hours and hours, repeating lessons to us, being so kind and patient to us, disciplined us. Rejoicing on all the wonderful actions done by researchers, scientists, artists, continually working to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings, creating new discoveries every day, spending time in research, You're rejoicing in all the wonderful deeds done by your colleagues, friends, neighbors, and your own self. Take a moment and rejoice in your goodness. How wonderful, I have it in me. I have it in me to be kind, to be compassionate, to be patient. And now requesting the Buddhas to remain. So we move on to the fifth one and making a heartfelt request. Please remain until the cyclic existence ends. Beseeching the enlightened masters not to pass into parinirvana, but to stay and continue to benefit sentient beings. So how does this help me? I mean, masters like His Holiness Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and all the bodhisattvas and all the Buddhas, we already have this vow to remain for sentient beings. And that's why they have manifested so many times already. But why did Bodhisattva Samanta Bhadra even think of putting out something out there? Why do we have to proactively request for them to remain? This is to nurture our connection with them. Because we are not enlightened yet. Even if they do manifest again, I must have done something that I can recreate that connection. So how does it help us? It helps us in, first of all, uprooting our laziness, especially the kind of laziness that say, I'm not good enough to be that. Yeah? Or taking things for granted. अभी गुरुजी है ना, कल कर लेंगे. है ना? तुषिता कहाँ जा रहा है? Right. Also, it helps us in counteracting the wrong views that forgets to continuously take advantage of the presence of the enlightened masters. Advantage how? By practicing what they're teaching us. By engaging in the actions that they're asking us to do that helps us create merit. So then it helps us strengthen the connection to the enlightened ones and maintains the conditions for our spiritual progress. Yeah? Then we requesting turning the wheel of Dharma and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. So number 6. Really petitioning our teachers and Buddhas to teach, to explain the path that leads us from ignorance to liberation. Short way of giving a tight whip to our ignorance and spiritual complacency, like laziness. Encouraging ourselves and our colleagues and our sangha to flourish on the path, supporting each other. Because when we're requesting the Guru to turn the wheel of Dharma, it's not just for ourselves. It's for everybody. And also it helps us cultivate a genuine appreciation for the teachings of the Buddha and a motivation to practice. From your heart, requesting your Guru to turn the wheel of Dharma. And then, dedication. I dedicate all the merit and virtue from all preceding practices for the benefit of all beings, directing this energy towards enlightenment and not just temporary goals. I dedicate all the virtues of myself and other beings to the great enlightenment. Now, how wonderful is this thought in itself? And a very skillful way of really uprooting the seed of holding and grasping, that I even allow my merit to be yours, to be utilized by others. Yeah? And when we do this, I remember Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say that when you give everything, when you offer everything to the Guru, Buddha, and all sentient beings, you actually lose nothing. Because you just give it a direction, you just created a cause for yourself to have all of that. If you are a beginner, if you are new on the path, it is good to give yourself this kind of impetus. And gradually, when you have gained more understanding of this practice, then you will relax that mind that says, oh, I'm doing this for my merit building exercise. I'm doing it for my spiritual brownie points. Okay? So in other words, prostration then counteracts pride. It helps us in creating humility and devotion. Making offerings is an antidote to attachment and miserliness. It helps us in generating merit and especially cultivating generosity. Confession, antidote to guilt, karmic obscurations. Purification supports both accumulation of merit and wisdom. Yeah? It's like if you have a clean, nice ground, is where you can sow the seeds and then see it flowering. And so then it helps you in restoring the purity of mind. Rejoicing is a direct antidote to jealousy, expanding joy in your practice, and removes the sense of competitiveness. Have you all heard of spiritual pride? The worst kind of pride. Worst of all kinds. Oh, how many prostration did you do? 500? I did 1,000. Oh, how many mantra? And in how much time? Oh, you did one mala in 10 minutes? I do 10 in 10 minutes. So who's your guru? My guru. And we have the sense, for how long have you been studying Dharma? What is your Dharma accomplishment? Whereas the Dharma the medicine is meant to cure you of your arrogance. So when we rejoice, that's one thing that we should be mindful of, that letting go of the sense of competitiveness that we have in our mundane lives. A healthy sense of competition is good. It drives you to do something. But if it turns into a spiritual ego, a sure shot way to the Vajra hell, no one can help you there. So sorry. Yeah? When we're requesting for the gurus and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to remain, it is also an antidote to discouraging us from abiding in wrong view. Of course, it generates a great deal of merit, and it helps us sustain the presence of the enlightened activity and beings. Request to teach, an antidote to ignorance, promotes Dharma and sustenance of Dharma and realizations. Then dedication, it's an antidote to self-clinging, and it seals the virtue and directs it to enlightenment. Yeah, it's almost like sealing the intent. So to conclude, the seven-limb prayer is a complete practice in itself, and you can take it as a standalone practice. Yeah, someday if you do not have time for the entire sadhana, if you just abide in doing the seven-limb practice itself, it's a very wholesome practice. So it's a complete practice encompassing the whole Mahayana path, purification, accumulation, and dedication within one concise form. So the first four limbs actually mainly purify and accumulate merit. The last three sustain, deepen, and seal the path towards bodhicitta and wisdom. When practiced in the view of emptiness and bodhicitta, the seven-limb prayer becomes a direct antidote to the two obscurations and a complete method to swiftly progress towards the accumulation of Buddhahood.